lights in the studio were warm, glowing with anticipation. The air carried that electric buzz, not of controversy or spectacle, but of something deeper. Across the polished floor of the set, two figures sat beneath the soft gleam of studio lights. One, Denzel Washington, the Hollywood icon whose voice had narrated decades of America's triumphs and tragedies. The other, President Ibrahim Traoré, a calm presence in a dark suit, eyes full of quiet resolve. It was supposed to be an interview about leadership, a conversation, nothing controversial. The producers expected elegance, charm, perhaps a few laughs. But what unfolded that night would become one of the most heartfelt, transformative moments ever captured on television. The host, a respected journalist from a major U.S. network, leaned forward with her signature smile. Tonight, we're joined by two men whose names need no introduction. One, a titan of storytelling who has graced the screen for decades. The other, a rising symbol of dignity and calm leadership. Please welcome Denzel Washington and President Ibrahim Traoré. Applause followed. Polite, respectful, but not raucous. The studio wasn't packed with fans. It was an intimate space, curated, calm. Denzel, always composed, leaned back with that graceful presence he carried into every room. Traoré sat beside him, quiet, but not small. His eyes moved slowly across the room, absorbing, not performing. The host began lightly. You both have followers who admire you not just for what you've done, but how you carry yourselves. Denzel, you once played a man who refused to scream, even when the world demanded he yell. And Mr. President, you've been called the world's calmest revolutionary. I have to ask, is there power in stillness? Denzel gave a slight smile. Stillness. That's where we hear God. Traoré nodded but said nothing. The host turned to him. President Traoré? He spoke softly, the way a stream might flow between rocks. Stillness is where truth doesn't hide. Denzel looked at him, not as a peer, not as a celebrity, but as a man who just saw another man say something that felt like scripture. The audience didn't clap. They couldn't. The room held its breath. Later into the show, the conversation turned toward public life. Denzel, the host asked, you've played kings, warriors, revolutionaries, but you've also said you'd never want to lead a country. Why? He chuckled. Because I'm not built like that. I make speeches with scripts. This man makes decisions that change lives. That's a different weight. Then, with a smile, he turned to Traoré. But I'd give you acting lessons if you ever want to run for president of Hollywood. Laughter, lighthearted, friendly. But something flickered. Traoré didn't frown, didn't smirk. He waited. He let the laughter settle, the air thicken. Then he turned slightly, not as a man corrected, but as one offering a gift. You bring stories to life, he said. I carry lives that don't get stories. The air shifted. In Burkina Faso, he continued, we have villages where children study beneath lanterns, if there is fuel that night. I don't act like a leader, I must live it, even when no camera watches. Denzel blinked, not in offense, in realization. Traoré's words weren't a retort, they were a mirror. The studio fell quiet. After the segment, Denzel sat in the green room, alone, glass of water untouched. His publicist approached. You okay? He nodded. Didn't expect that. What part? Denzel didn't answer. He just whispered. He doesn't raise his voice, and yet I heard him louder than anyone. Across the building, Traoré stood by a window, hands behind his back. One of the producers approached hesitantly. "You shook him, sir." Traoré turned. "No," he said gently. "He heard himself in my words. That's different." The next morning, Denzel sent a handwritten note, not posted, not tweeted, just delivered. It read, "President Traoré, thank you for speaking like a river. I've stood on stages, won trophies, played giants. But last night, I met a man who didn't need a spotlight to be seen. You reminded me that power isn't projected. It's held in quiet. I needed that." 3 days later, the note leaked, not by Denzel, but by a makeup artist who had seen it on a desk and cried reading it. The internet didn't mock it. It went viral, not for controversy, but for truth. News anchors read Traoré's words. TikTok creators stitched his sentences into montages. Priests quoted him in sermons. Psychologists analyzed his emotional leadership, and young people, especially men, posted teary reactions. "You don't have to yell to be strong," one caption read. Denzel's visit to Burkina Faso. Without a press tour, without agents, Denzel arrived in Ouagadougou 2 weeks later. He didn't stay in a 5-star hotel. He stayed with a local family. Just a room, a bed, a ceiling fan. Traoré met him not in a palace, but under a neem tree outside a community school. Children gathered around, none recognizing the Hollywood icon. To them, he was just Papa Denzel. And he loved it. They spoke for hours, not about politics or cinema, about roots, dignity, faith, fatherhood. At one point, a young boy tugged on Denzel's sleeve. "Sir," he asked, "why did you come here?" Denzel bent low, voice soft. "To remember who I was before the world gave me applause." That night, Denzel joined Traoré for a community dinner. Rice, stew, laughter, no cameras. Just men, families, children. Denzel stood to speak, not to perform, but to offer thanks. "I've lived a life of lines," he began, "but the most powerful words I've ever heard weren't in a script. They came from this man, sitting quietly on a stage, reminding me that stillness can speak." He paused, voice cracking. "I don't want to be remembered for the movies I made. I want to be remembered for what I heard and how it changed me." A long silence followed. Then a child clapped. Then another. And then the whole room. Not for entertainment, for healing. In the U.S., the clip of Denzel in Burkina Faso surfaced. People cried. Comments flooded in. "I've never seen Denzel like this. This man left the world to find his soul." President Traoré is a global treasure. Colleges introduced Leadership in Silence lectures based on the conversation. Oprah invited Traoré for a private conversation. He declined politely. "I am not a brand," he said. "I'm a man trying to serve." Before leaving Burkina Faso, Denzel visited a school library named after Traoré. On the wall, a quote from the night that changed everything. "Stillness is where truth doesn't hide." Denzel touched the wall gently. He turned to the children. "You have something the world forgets," he said. "A leader who listens more than he speaks." The story wasn't about fame. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't even about a viral moment. It was about two men, one who shaped stories, one who carried them. And in one quiet moment, across languages, borders, and applause, they reminded the world of a truth we've forgotten. You don't have to be loud to change lives. Sometimes, the softest words echo forever.